Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video. Today's video comes from a video request that has been a long time in the queue. I'm really sorry I took so long to get this video out. And it comes from Nows100, and the request is: nice videos, literally set up all my containers via your videos. Could you possibly do one for Authentik? They're not specifically saying what they want to see about Authentik, so I'm thinking that I'm gonna probably split this into two videos. This one, which is gonna be how do you set it up to get it running, and then another video later that is gonna be about the functionality of Authentik, because this is a very robust application, so I think it's better to split it into two. So on today's video we're gonna be doing the first part, which is how do you get it up and running in a Synology NAS in this case, but it should work basically very similar on any other system. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do here is go to their official GitHub repository so that we can see what this application is about. You can find it at github.com/goauthentic/authentic. And if you come here, you see that this is the authentication glue you need. That's how they advertise it. And they have their official website there, which is goauthentic.io. And if we come down here, we can see that this has been released 346 times. So this is very, very nice. There's a lot of work being done with this. And it's currently in release 2026.55. The way that they make the releases is kind of interesting because they name them based on a date. So release date, all right. And if we come down here a little bit, we can see that this is mainly written in Python and TypeScript, so a combination of those two languages, and there's a little bit of Go also in there. And it has 579 contributors, which is really good. There's a good, healthy amount of people working on this application. And if you scroll down here, we can see the logo for Authentik in here, which is pretty interesting. Looks like some Ethernet cable in there, making the hole for the A. That's pretty nice. And then it says, what is Authentik? It says that it's an open source identity provider for modern single sign-on. It supports SAML, OAuth2, OpenID Connect, LDAP, Radius, and more. And it is designed for self-hosting from small labs to large production clusters. So they have an enterprise offering, and they give you a link there so you can get details about that. And then they tell you have several ways to install this. We're going to be using the Docker Compose version here, but they also have it for Kubernetes if you are running Kubernetes clusters. You also have AWS CloudFormation templates, and you have also the DigitalOcean marketplace if you use DigitalOcean to host your things. And then they give us here some example screenshots of how this application looks like. For example, we click here, we can see they have configured a bunch of applications in here. So for cloud, they have a bunch of different providers. For infrastructure, they have a bunch of different infrastructure services. For monitoring, they have here. So they have a lot of stuff here. They have even personal stuff down there. It keeps on going. So let me look at other images here. You can get the dark mode. And in here, you see the dashboard that we're going to be looking at when we get to the application the first time. And in here we have the dark mode of that too. So pretty good, decent screenshots in here. And then they give you the link to the developer documentation here, and they also give you other information about a style guide and all that. So pretty simplified, pretty straight up. The GitHub repository gives you the links to where you need more information. And then another thing is, if you go to their official website, which is goauthentic.io, you will see then that they have a lot of options here to how to get you started, reasons to switch if you're using another type of identity provider. They tell you basically what are the good things about it, and if you want more details, they have a table down here that tells you, what kind of things you have. Something that I really like about this application is you have MFA for something that you self-host yourself. Is really good. You can self-host it anywhere. You can establish conditional access. It's open source. It serves as an application proxy. It's compliant with FIPS. It has enterprise support if you are at that level, and a bunch of other things. Tells you about the protocols that you can use to authenticate people, which is good. And for federation, you also have options to federate. And basically, if you come up here, you have the documentation section, which takes you here. And in here is where you would see like the installation details. and I think it's important that you have a link to here, because I've noticed that this changes quite often. For example, the user here, aka admin, has changed over time. So if you have any issues, I recommend you to come here and check that nothing has changed, because at the time of recording this video, this is accurate, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So yeah, now we can proceed with setting this application up. For this application, I have created a reference guide. You can see it in the Tech by Tips reference guide on GitHub, and it gives you everything that you need to know here. This is another one of those applications that is broken into multiple containers. So we're going to have to deploy a database container, a cache container, the server container, and a worker container. And here's the folder structure that we need to create. So I'm going to go over that really quickly now. And we're going to have a Docker Compose example here in the repository, which is what we're going to be using. Let's go to the NAS. The first thing we're going to be doing is setting up the folder structure. So the first thing we're going to do is in our Docker directory for the Synology NAS, we're going to go into the projects folder, which is where we store our Docker Compose files. And I'm going to create an Authentik directory here for that Docker Compose. Then I'm going to go into the containers directory. And in here, I'm going to create a folder for Authentik. And in there, I'm going to create the following folders. One named certs. This is used by Outpost containers that the system creates when it needs it. So this is for the SSL and TLS. We have the data container there, which stores data that it needs to save regarding the functionality of the application. Like specifically, if I'm not mistaken, the worker container is the one that uses this the most. Then we have a database folder here. Let me clear this out because I had it running previously, so I need to make sure I clear it up. So it should be an empty database folder in here with nothing else. And then we should have a Redis, which is for our cache to store data when it needs it here. And then a templates, which is mainly used by the application for email templates and things like that. And the next thing we're going to be doing is obviously we need to create a project for this. So I'm going to go into the container manager, going to go into the projects, and I'm going to create one that I'm going to name Authentic. And then I'm going to look for the folder that I created for the Docker Compose file, which is this one, Docker Projects Authentic. And then I'm going to come here and create a Docker Compose. I'm going to copy this from the reference guides, so we should be able to discuss that next. So I'm going to do next, don't start it, done, and then we're going to see the Docker Compose in details. So as we can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 containers. The first one that we're going to be defining in here is the database container, which is going to be a PostgreSQL database. We're going to be using the Alpine version 16, and we're going to name it authentic-db. We're going to have to specify some environment variables, so make sure you change this whenever you're running it. So you need a database name. I'm going to leave it as authentic. A user for the database is going to be authentic, and the password is password. Obviously, you need to change this to a strong password. And then we're going to be mounting the database folder to the container so that all of our database data is going to be saved in that folder. And then we're going to have a quick health check here to make sure that the database is working before we proceed. And we're going to restart this container unless we manually come here and stop it. The next container that we're going to be creating here is the Redis cache. So we're going to be using the Alpine version 7 of Redis, and we're going to name it authentic-cache. We're going to put the same password that we put in here for the Postgre password. So this is going to be the password that is going to be used to connect to the Redis. Obviously, you need to make a better password. This is just for the sake of the video. And we're going to mount the Redis folder that we created previously to the container in the /data directory. And we're going to have a command here that says, run the Redis server and require the password, and the password is going to be password, which is this one specified. And this is going to restart unless we manually stop. So know this password. If you change this, you have to change it. Then the third container that we're going to be running here is actually the main application, which is the server. And it's going to be using the official Go Authentic server image. I'm going to be using the 2026-54 image, and it's going to be named authentic-server. I'm going to specify the environment variables that I need. So to connect to Postgres, I need to put the Postgre service name, which is PostgreSQL, and then we need to put the name of the database and the user and the password that we specified up here. So that's why everything is authentic and password. And then for the Redis, we're going to do the same. We're going to put the name of the service, which is Redis, and then the password that we specified in here so that it is able to connect there. And then we need to create an authentic secret key. It has to be a long series of characters. So that's why I put this as an example, but you can generate a base64 string or something like that. Just make sure it's very long and it has a variety like uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters, stuff like that. And then the bootstrap password is going to be the password for the administrator account that gets created when Authentik starts for the first time. Now in this case, I left these options here because you might need them, but I'm not going to be using them in this video. This is if you need to send emails, you need to specify an SMTP server that allows you to send emails. And if you're going to be exposing this, then you need to make sure that you put the proper domain to the instance. But in my case, it's commented out. I'm not going to be using that. It's going to be just internal. Now, the next thing we have here is that the container listens on port 9000. I'm going to expose it on the NAS on port 9000. And then there's also port 9443 for SSL, and I'm going to expose it on 9443 also in the NAS. Now, here's the option for the shared memory size. I'm not going to specify it, but this is an option that you have if you notice that it's consuming too much and you want to reduce it, or you need to give it more. That's how you do it. And then the volumes, I'm going to mount the data directory to the container and the templates also to the container. So left side is the NAS, right side is the container. Then the command here that we're going to be running is server when the container starts, and this is not going to start until the database is ready and healthy. And we restart it unless we come and manually stop it in here. And the last container is the worker, which does background tasks. We're going to be using the server image, again the same one, and we're going to name it the Authentic worker. But this specific one has to run as root because it has to access the Docker socket. This is the reason why I took so long to create this video. I was trying to find if there was a way that I could get this to work properly without having to be root, but honestly there's really no way to do that. It needs to be root in order to manage the socket. So I just gave up on it, accepted that that's how this works, and continued. So in here we have the credentials and all the information necessary to connect to the Postgres database. So the host is the service name, the database name, the user and the password is here. And then for the Redis, we have Redis, which is the service name, and the password that we created for that. And then the key that we created for the server is the same one that we put in here. And then the volumes, I mounted the Docker socket and the data folder, the certificates folder, and the templates in here. So it has access to all of those folders. And then the difference is that the command for this one is going to be the worker. So it's exactly the same image, but this is going to behave as the worker. And this depends on the database being up, so that's why we have that depends on in there. And it's going to restart unless we manually stop it ourselves in here. All of this information is information that I found in their official website here. So if you go, there's the documentation section that takes you here, and they have a Docker Compose installation section that gives you everything that you need here. And very important, I have noticed that things have changed over time. For example, right now the admin user that gets created is akadmin, so just be aware of that. If you're having issues with this, come to the documentation and check it out, because this is something that could change very likely. So now that we have all of this, we should be able to then build the container. So let me just save this and build it. And then when we do that, it should, in my case, it's going to be fast. I already have the images downloaded, but it's going to create those containers, start them, and then we should get our notification here that says exit code 0 when everything is working properly. And we should get also a notification up here. So let's give it a little bit of time until that is done. All right, we got the exit code 0, we got the notification here, so that lets me know that the application should start running. We can go to the containers and check that the database is up and running. It's still working on some transactions, so let's give a little bit of time. Let's check on the other ones. Redis should at least say that is ready, so it's ready to accept connections. That's good. And if we go into the server, we should see that it is connecting to the database and running migrations and stuff like that. This takes a while. I think it goes to like 1,200 and something lines. So we're still in the beginning. We're at almost 300. Be patient. Just keep refreshing this until you get to the point where you don't see more updates coming in. So I'm going to pause and come back when that has finally happened. If we go to the IP of the NAS and then we put port 9000, this is what we should get while the server is starting up and doing the database migrations. So this is another way that you'll know that it's still not ready when you see this kind of screen here. You just have to continue being patient. Alright, we can see here that we're about there, 1,200, so should be anytime soon that we should be able to come here, refresh, and then here we go. We get this login page, which is the default here. We're going to be in the default authentication flow, and we're going to be using the AK admin user that we saw in the documentation. And then we're going to put the password that we created in our Docker Compose file. So in my case, I said it was going to be password. And then that should get us inside the application as that administrator user. And as you can see, we currently don't have anything configured in here. We can just create a new application or go to the documentation, but it is working. We can go back into the NAS, check here, for example, the database, and we have all our database information here. Since we don't have anything running yet, the other folders are likely going to be empty. So don't be afraid of that. It is working. The application is running. So now it's just a matter of learning how to use it and configure it and all of that. We're going to probably do another video on that because this application is very, very deep, has a lot of things, and I don't want to end up with another 1 hour video in this case. But this should get you the application running, right? If you need to go to the administration interface, you can click here where it says admin interface, and it's going to take you here where you can see all of your stuff related to the administration of the application. You have your dashboard here with the user statistics, system tasks, and all of that you can track in here. And then in here is where you would do all of the other things that you do with the application, like registering applications, providers, creating outposts if you need them, defining endpoint devices, looking at your events, customizing the application, looking at your flows and stages, looking for the directory stuff, configuring the system here, and if you have an enterprise license, you can also apply that in here. So as you can see, this is a very robust application, has way too many things here. So we're going to be taking a look at this and how we can use it to provide authentication to other applications that we use in our home labs. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one. This should get you the application running. So we'll dive deeper into this application in the next video, but at least this gets you started so that then you can explore and experiment, and you can refer to the documentation to configure it and set it up however you need it. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so, click on the bell so you don't miss any notification of videos uploaded to the channel. As you can see, a lot of my videos come from comments and video requests, so be aware that the comment section is available to you. I always look at it. I try to help people out in the comment section whenever I can, and I grab ideas for videos to make based on things that you request. And I also try to prioritize the videos of people that donate to the channel, unless there's like something really difficult or something problematic that doesn't allow me to create the video properly. If I don't tell you that I'm not making the video, it is still in the queue and I'll get to it eventually once I figure it out. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this one. You should have noticed there was no ad on my video because I'm not monetizing the YouTube channel. So YouTube doesn't put an ad in there, but that means also that the effort that I put into making these videos give me no returns. So if you like the content and you want to support me, there's a link in the description below to PayPal where you can donate. There's also a Bitcoin wallet address if you prefer to do it that way. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. We're going to dive deep into this application in another video.